over to this man, Jeremy. Thanks all you've done for sticking by Labour, Jeremy.
Thanks. John, thanks for that. Thanks for all you say. And thanks for the way throughout your life you stood by and stuck up for those Labour values of unity, of strength, of achieving things together. And that's how we're going to win this election. I've got a gift here for Charlotte. And it says, Charlotte, you are brilliant. You are our future. And it is a copy of For the Many, Not the Few. And thanks for what you said. And thanks to DJ Corbyn for the music. Absolutely brilliant. The song will rise and rise and rise. And on June the 8th, it will achieve its zenith. Do you get it? Zenith, June the 8th. John, I thought you'd warm the audience up. But I won't give in, absolutely, I never give in. Listen, but just get one thing clear. I'm not going to embarrass people like John did about raising your hands. But if any of you have not registered to vote, you have 4 hours and 56 minutes in which to borrow somebody's iPad, iPhone, or whatever, get online and register to vote on June the 8th. It's your future you're voting about. And 2 million and more people have already registered who were not registered when this election was called. And you know what? I've called on people to register to vote. Every local authority in the land has called on people to vote. Every TV channel has called on people to register to vote. Pretty well everybody has. But there's one big gap. And we checked very, very carefully before I make this statement to you. We checked it assiduously. There is not one mention anywhere in any publication, online or otherwise, by the Conservative Party of the need to register to vote. Now, why would that be? Why on earth would that be? I cannot imagine. Because if you're in politics, surely you want people to take part. Or are they worried about 2 million young people registering to decide their future? So, get yourself registered. And a lot of people have been very helpful to make sure people that have no secure home, that are homeless and sleeping rough, they too can and must register to vote. It's about their future as well. And so, please, please do that. Now, today we had some, what was promised to be a U-turn by the Prime Minister on the issue of social care. Let's make it clear. There are 1 million people denied the social care they need at the present time. There are thousands at any one moment in hospital waiting to leave hospital, but they can't because there's no social care package available for them. And every local authority is under real pressure on this. And when we started pressing the government on this, they did a deal with one local authority in Surrey. And for the Tories, it seems that Surrey is the hardest word, because they wouldn't offer even a meeting to Hull, to Newcastle, to Liverpool, to Manchester, to anybody else. They just wanted to do a deal for the constituencies represented by themselves. Well, I'm sorry, I want there to be good quality social care for all in Surrey, in Hull, in Newcastle, in Manchester, in the whole country. Because we're not into those politics of division. We're into the politics of bringing people together. And so, whilst they would take away homes if they could in order to pay for social care, we say it's a public responsibility to care for those in need, many of whom are elderly, some of whom are disabled, some of whom have learning difficulties, but are all people, all need help, and all deserve help from all of us. And so we've made it clear that immediately we get into office, we will fund that crisis straight away, because people should not be left in that level of stress. And you know what? In every hospital around the country there is stress. Nurses, doctors, assistants, staff, porters, everybody in the hospital. Frozen wages for 7 years. More and more work, more and more stress. People waiting in hospital corridors for treatment. Is any of that necessary? Is any of that right? No, no, and no again. Because, as John quite rightly pointed out, it was a Labour government after the Second World War, during the period of the most intense shortages and difficulties, had the vision of a society that cared for all, not the misery and injustice of the 30s and the years before. And so when people say, our manifesto, could you hold it up please, Charlotte? Thank you very much. Our manifesto is a throwback. I say this manifesto, this programme here, is about those traditional core values we have in our movement, fit for the 21st century when we still care for everybody. And so, the hospitals underfunded, social care underfunded, those going through mental health crises and stress unable to get the help they need and deserve because 6,000 mental health nurses have lost their jobs in the past 7 years. None of this is necessary, none of this is right. It's making the poorest and most vulnerable, it's making the hardest working in our public sector jobs pay the price of the banking crisis of 2008. I tell you who should pay the price of the banking crisis of 2008. The bankers who caused the crisis. And so you then look at so many other things in our society. This election is not about dividing this country between the elderly and the young. It's not about dividing one region against another. It's not about the politics of division. Look around this wonderful audience here today. Who are we? We're young, we're old, we're black, we're white, we're men, we're women, we're straight, we're gay, we're disabled, we don't have disabilities, we're all kinds of things. But that is what brings us together. Because you know what? When you practice the politics of hate and scapegoating, all you've done is created hate, misery and distrust. And you haven't built a house, you haven't employed a nurse, you haven't trained a doctor, you've achieved absolutely nothing. We are going in absolutely the opposite direction of bringing people together and investment for the future of all of us. And that starts with how we treat our children. Why should our primary school heads, our secondary school heads, have to go through the misery of deciding which teacher to get rid of, which subject to end, which teaching assistant to send down the road, which books not to buy, which desks not to replace, which facilities won't happen, which school journeys won't take place, because there's some weird funding formula that takes money away from the vast majority of our schools for the first time for many, many decades. I find that absurd, I find it unnecessary, and I find it wrong. I want to lead a government that invests in our children, not takes away from them. And you know what? Hungry children, by the way, you guys up there, be careful on that wall, don't fall off, please. Because you know what happens? Anything that goes wrong anywhere in the whole country is my fault. So do me a favour and be careful up there. And you down there as well. Because hungry children find it really hard to learn and really hard to concentrate. That's why we have Free school meals for some children, other children don't get it, the children of the working poor don't get it, and so on and so on. I believe in a society that cares for all and a community for all. So a Labour government will bring in free school meals for every child in every primary school in the whole country. And you know what? The experience of those children being properly fed in school every day and eating it together rather than going into separate rooms to have their lunch because some get free meals, some bring sandwiches and so on. Bring our children together, the better they might understand the power of a community being together. And earlier today, we launched our Culture Manifesto here in Hull, the City of Culture, here in Hull, the City of Poetry, here in Hull, the place that has invested so much in the creative arts and so much else. And one of the proudest things in that cultural manifesto we put forward, yes, the investment in museums and galleries and theatres, yes, the opportunities for music space, for entertainment and for rehearsal, but also the pupil premium for arts, so that every child will get money in order to be able to learn a musical instrument. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that it's a Labour government that's going to do that. As it was a Labour government in the 1960s when Jenny Lee, appointed by Harold Wilson, set up the Arts Council and started the process of public investment in arts for all. Because in every young person there is music, in every young person there is ambition, there's ideas, there's creativity. Let's make sure all those ideas are able to come up and those children are not ignored and left behind. That's our pledge and that's our promise. And there's so many other issues that we have to face in our society. I'm shocked and appalled as I travel around the country, and I do travel a great deal around the country, is the number of people I meet sleeping on the streets, hanging around the stations. They've all got a backstory, they've all had lives, they've all had disasters, they've all had problems in their lives. And they're desperately sad to hear those stories. Desperately sad to find people who were once proudly in work, once living reasonably secure lives, stuff has gone wrong, things have happened, and they end up spending the day begging for a bit of money in order to pay for a night shelter if they can afford it. Well, I don't think in the 21st century the fifth richest country in the world should really tolerate that sort of thing. And I think we need a housing policy in this country that recognises in many ways the rough sleeping homeless are the symptom, not the cause of the problem, is insufficient building of council housing, insufficient building of new housing, too much money being spent on empty luxury flats and homes in London and the South East that are kept empty as a land bank for speculators in the future. I want to lead a government that will build 1 million homes in 5 years, half of which will be council or social rented. I want to deal with the housing crisis so that young people can dream and really dream of getting a place and a home of their own, because a well-housed population, a properly fed population, a properly educated population is one that is more at ease with itself and going places. And so it is, yes, it is about the economy. It is about what you do. This government is going to give away roughly £60 billion in tax relief to the corporations and the very rich in the next 5 years. That's their plan. That's their plan. That's what they're trying to do as they cut corporation tax and they keep on giving various forms of tax relief to those at the top end of the scale. We think this country needs investment. It needs investment in people, investment in education, in health and housing. It needs investment in our infrastructure. It needs it fairly invested so it doesn't all go to one region. It goes to every region. And so our National Investment Bank will do just that. Our National Investment Bank will invest for all regions across the whole country. And we'll invest in cutting-edge technology, in sustainable jobs and green technology as well. We'll recognise the huge advances made here in Hull by what Siemens are doing and many others in sustainable energy jobs. These things are very important. And negotiate a trade agreement with Europe so that we continue trade once we've left the European Union on a tariff-free basis, so our manufacturing industry jobs are not under threat, either here in Hull or anywhere across the north or northeast. So it's that investment for the future that I think is so important in this election. So on June the 8th, there is a real choice. Nobody can say there's no choice in this election. It's very clear. You've either got a government that says, essentially, you've got to re-elect us because we're the government and because we're very important and because we're very powerful and because we're very decisive and we only change our minds 3 times a day and we don't quite know what we're doing from one day to the other, but we're nevertheless very strong, very stable and very secure, and we know exactly what we're doing. Well, I tell you this, the alternative is what we offer here. Charlotte, please hold it up again. Thank you very much. What we offer here is a programme for everybody. A programme for, yes, all the investment that I've talked about and all the things that we want to do, the way we want young people to get to university, the way we want a decent living wage, the way we want people to be able to live decently. But it's also about us. It's about how we view ourselves, how we view our lives, our society, our confidence, how we view the problems all around the world. Do we walk by on the other side as individuals when somebody's in trouble? No, we don't. No, we don't. None of us do. We are human beings. It's a human instinct. You reach out and help people. But we have a government that absolutely walks by on the other side. Whole communities that have seen no investment since the end of the coal industry, that walked by on the other side while Scunthorpe and Port Talbot and Redcar were under threat from dumped steel in this country, walked by on the other side with hospitals, walked by on the other side with hospitals underfunded and unable to treat the patients that were coming in with a crisis. Or do we make that declaration on June the 8th of the kind of society we want to live in? That kind of inclusive society that does have a government that works for all, of a society that works for all. And so elections are won and lost by lots of things. The media, I know, and I'm not going to have a go at our friends in the National Union of Journalists or any other union. No, John, I'm sort of, you know, I'll talk to you later, it's all right. What I'm going to say is simply this. A lot of people in the Labour Party, John particularly, and many others, have received the most abominable personal abuse in some of our newspapers. That's encouraged a whole atmosphere of personal abuse. Now, I think it's disgusting, I think it's disgraceful, and I think personal abuse on social media is abominable and appalling. I personally don't respond to any of it because I'm not prepared to waste my time or energies in the gutter with these people. And so, we can win this election by all of you here, every one of you here. Yes, being able to vote, to register is of course important. Good, thank you very much. And being able, you've done it, have you? All right, while the minute's gone on, was it clicked on all right, was it? Thanks very much. Another voter there. But it's also about the conversations we have. The ballot papers for postal voters will be going out in 4 days' time. The election is on in 4 days' time. During those 4 days and during the 2 weeks after that, have those conversations on the bus, in the cafe, in the pub, on the train, wherever you are, about what is on offer, about what this election is about. It's about our democracy, it's about our society, it's about our future. And when you have those conversations, you'll suddenly realise the scales fall from people's eyes. They realise they do have power, they do have influence, they do have an opportunity, they do have this incredible opportunity of putting forward a policy programme and ideas that will do things very differently, that will fundamentally transform our society, our social attitudes, our sense of justice, and our sense of justice around the world. I am very proud to lead the Labour Party. I'm very proud of the support we've been given in this election and all the other campaigns. I'm very proud to put forward what we're suggesting, what we're offering to the British people. And I hope you'll come together on this. We will come together to achieve this thing. We will win this election, and it will be our victory for all of us. Thank you very much indeed, Hull, for everything you've done.